Hello everybody, it's Paul Neese with Torah Life Ministries, and we are doing the Torah portion for this coming week, this next Shabbat, and it is the 17th reading, the 17th week we are doing this reading, breaking it down, starting in Genesis 1:1, going through the first 5 books of the Scriptures. And yes, Genesis means Bereshit, and the Bible starts in Genesis. And we are up to Exodus 18:1 to 20:26, and the title of this is Jethro, which is one of the names of Moses' father-in-law. And in the first chapter 18 of Exodus, we're going to see him meeting Moses and talking about that. But then we get into the 20th chapter eventually, and in the 20th chapter we see Moses via our Creator giving the 10 Commandments to the children of Israel. And that's why this is so important today, because as believers of Messiah, we are to do what Messiah said. The original believers were called followers of the way. What way? The way Yeshua Messiah pointed out and told them to live. And Yeshua Messiah taught everything that's found in the Torah. And he said this is what's to be done. The Torah means guidelines and instructions. And without a good foundation, you are not going to have a solid walk with Messiah today. So we need to understand what the Torah is saying, and we need to understand the significance of the 10 Commandments. Now, there are many people, when they hear the word commandments, they say, oh, we're saved through grace, so we don't need to follow the commandments. Well, the Torah means guidelines and instructions. And as the rabbis or historical writings have it, the word is not commandments, but it's known as the 10 words or the 10 teachings. And this just sums up the 613 teachings that were out there. But by all means, there are many teachings that we are accountable for as believers of Messiah. When we take on the identity saying we are now a follower of Yeshua, we have to follow what he taught, what he lived, and what he set by example, and that was keeping the Torah. Now, even though in this week's teaching there's giving of these 10 words or these 10 commandments, whatever you want to refer to them as, there was much more than 10, folks. There was 613. Now, many Christians today will say, oh, well, Yeshua said, somebody asked him, what are the greatest commandments? And he said, well, love your God above all other gods, and also that love your neighbors as you love yourself, and that sums it all up. No, folks, that might sum it up, but that doesn't excuse us from actually doing everything we have to do. So we must understand the commandments, and we must understand these, and we're just recapping it when we say these are the 2 greatest, or this sums up to 10, or these 10 sum up to 613, which always leads me to another question that I get is, what commandment should we be keeping today, or what teaching should we be keeping today? And the answer is, we keep what we're able to. There are certain commandments that were given during the temple times, when the temple was standing, that had to do with sacrifices. Now the temple will be coming back, and those commandments will be something we'll be able to do. But right now we're not able to do them, so we can't keep them. But we do our best to keep what we're able to. There are certain commandments that are given to women that men can't keep, and vice versa. But we do what we are able to do. And the 10 Commandments are something we can certainly do and we're able to do. So I tell people, as a believer and follower of Yeshua Messiah, you say you don't have to keep all the commandments and all the guidelines and instructions. Well, there were 613. Don't you think, as a believer in Yeshua Messiah, you should do your best to at least try to keep 10 of them? But people, they this is something you might not want to hear, folks, but it's just the truth. Most people that proclaim Yeshua as Messiah are biblically illiterate. They just go and they follow some preacher or pastor or motivational speaker, and they do whatever they say to do, but they don't have any understanding or knowledge of the Scriptures, especially the foundation of all Scriptures, which is the Torah. And if you truly want to be a follower of Messiah and want him to love you as he says, keep my commandments, and I love those who keep my word, and so on, well, we would want to see what the Scriptures have to say. And when we accept Yeshua as Messiah, we're going to want to follow and learn and do everything he wanted us to do. So we're going to look at Exodus 18:1 to 20:26, and we're going to see exactly what he wanted us to do. But before we do that, we're going to get into the problem, the issue we have today. The issue we have today is basically we have a spiritual war going on with the enemy, the adversary. And the adversary, Satan, cannot do one thing to us. He cannot touch us physically. He cannot touch us physically. If he could, we would all be dead right now. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be experiencing the blessings that our Creator has bestowed upon us for being obedient if the enemy can mess with us physically. However, the enemy can do one thing that he does to so many people out today. He deceives. So Satan deceives people into believing that they no longer have to follow the guidelines and instructions of our Creator, and that will put us in a situation that will physically harm us. So this deception started in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, and it continues today. People are being deceived. And when we look at the deception taking place, we look at this week's Torah reading and we look at the commandments that were given, the 10 commandments that were given in this week's Torah reading specifically that we have this week. And the last commands will say something that has something to do with our morality or the way we should live. And you can just go to about any church today or any congregation or assembly, even people that do not claim to be professed believers of Yeshua Messiah, will say these last 6 commandments. Commandments that we should all be keeping, such as do not steal, do not rob, do not lie. These are just common moral things that are done in today's world because people have some type of morality left to their understanding. However, here comes the problem. The commandments that we are supposed to have with our Creator, the first 4 commandments, most people today are just throwing away and not keeping, not following, not even attempting. And this is where the deception comes in, because our enemy wants people to believe we no longer have to follow the first 4 commandments. And these are the lies that come right from the pits of hell, right from the enemy. And it creates a lot of physical harm and damage to people today. So when we look at this, we're going to look at this week's reading. We have to keep that in mind, that as believers in Yeshua Messiah, we are responsible for everything He told us to do that we are able to do. And I don't want to hear anyone say, well, there's no way, we're not perfect, we can't keep all these things. We do our best, we try our best, we pursue it with our best intentions, and we leave the outcome up to our Creator, but we don't try to shortchange Him and say, oh, and make excuses why we shouldn't try to do these things. We do the best we can do with what we got, with what we're able to. And as far as I understand and I see from Scripture, He's given us everything we need to do to keep majority of the commandments that are out there, especially the 10 commandments that are given in this week's reading. There's no reason why anyone that proclaims themselves as being a believer cannot keep these 10 of the 613 commandments, and no reason why they shouldn't at least try. Now, if they do their best and they put their best, our Creator sees our heart, and if we mess up, we make a mistake, and we're repentant for it, He's going to see our heart, He's going to know our heart. But if we continue to walk around making excuses why we no longer have to follow His word or keep His guidelines and instructions, well, didn't Yeshua say in the Scriptures, get away, I didn't even know you? I didn't even know you? Because as it says in the Scriptures, we are known by our fruit. We are known by our works. We are known by what we are trying to accomplish. And that's how we are known. Well, if we're not trying to keep the guidelines and instructions of our Creator, Yeshua said it Himself, get away from me, I did not even know you. That's how He's identifying us, by our actions. And our actions as a believer must be to understand and keep what we're able to, and we are certainly able to keep what we're told to, the guidelines and instructions of the Torah, especially these 10 words that are given in this week's teaching. Now, starting with that, let's start off in Exodus 18:1, because the actual 10 commandments were not given until Exodus 20, which will be part of this week's reading, because this week's reading is Exodus 18:1 to 20:26. But we are going to look at this, and we're going to start off in this week's reading, and we're going to look at Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, because that's where it starts off with. So, open up your Bibles, everybody, and let's turn to Exodus 18:1. And in Exodus 18:1, we'll start reading together here. In 18:1 it says, now Jethro, the priest of Midian. Now first of all, even though he was Moses' father-in-law, he was not an Israelite, and he wasn't representing our Creator. He was representing a pagan false god. And that's what he did. He was a priest of a false god. It said, now Jethro, the priest of Midian, the father-in-law of Moses. And some people might get confused or wonder, Jethro, how come he was called other things? Well, he had several different names within the Scriptures. And one of his names was Jethro, or Jethro was the title more than the name. But the priest of Midian, the father-in-law of Moses, heard all that our Creator had done for Moses and for his people Israel. And our Creator brought Israel out of Egypt, as he heard. Well, so here you have Jethro. Somehow the report got to him, and it probably would have spread all over the region at that time, if not all over the world at that time, because you had the Egyptians perishing in the parting Red Sea that closed up on them, which we saw in last week's Torah portion. So word got to Jethro that all that had happened, and he says after that, Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, had taken back Zipporah, the wife of Moses, after Moses had dismissed her and her 2 sons, one called Gershom, or stranger, for Moses said when he named him, I have been a stranger in a foreign land, and the other was called Eliezer, or God help, for Moses said, he may be, my father's God has been help to me, rescuing me from Pharaoh's sword. So what we have here is the understanding, or we see that Moses went out of the land, and he went with his wife and his 2 sons when he was going into Egypt. But on the way to Egypt, something happened where Moses said, no, go back to his wife and the 2 sons, go back to your father Jethro. You can't continue to come with me. And there are many speculations at what happened, and I'll just give you 2 of the possible scenarios, or 2 of the most common discussed ones. One of them is that when the wife of Moses circumcised the son, that Moses, they had a big issue over this, or they had a falling out, so to say, and Moses sent her back. The other one was when it says Aaron met Moses in a desert, and Moses appeared getting ready for this big job to help convince Pharaoh to free the children of Israel out of Egypt. And Aaron said, why are you bringing your wife and your kids along with you? And Moses said, because they're my wife and kids. Well, Aaron says, look, we got already enough slaves and enough people to free. We can't have 3 more. So Moses said, you're right, and sent them back. Regardless if those stories are true or not, regardless of the reason, Moses went on alone with Aaron and sent his wife and 2 sons back. And here we are fast forwarding after the children got out of Egypt. They were in the desert, and Moses' father-in-law found them in the desert and came with his wife and his 2 kids. And it goes on to say here in Exodus 18:5, Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, came into the desert, and then with the sons and the wife of Moses to where Moses was camped at on the hill of our Creator. And Moses was told, here is your father-in-law Jethro coming to you, along with your wife and her 2 boys. Now, I don't know exactly the timing or how long it was since Moses last saw his wife and his 2 sons, but you would figure Moses would run up to his wife and his 2 sons and kiss them. But that's not what happened. It says here in Exodus 18:7, so Moses went out to meet his father-in-law. He bowed low before him and kissed him. So he kissed his father-in-law. So this leads me to believe the last time Moses saw his wife, they didn't have a good parting. And Moses kissed his father-in-law, and he bowed before him and kissed him. Didn't say anything about Moses kissing his children or his wife, which is not a good thing. But it says he bowed before him and kissed him. Then they asked for one another's health and went inside the tent, where Moses told his father-in-law all that our wonderful Creator had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the distress that they had suffered in their journey, and how our Creator preserved them. So Moses was really telling Jethro all the things that Jethro had already heard. So Jethro was coming maybe to confirm everything that he heard. Were they truly rumors, or did this really happen? He left his pleasures of his home or his comfort of his home to go out to the desert to find the children wandering in the desert. Now some of you might be thinking, well, wait a second here. How did he find them in the desert, in the wilderness? Well, remember, folks, this wasn't like a handful of people in the desert. This was over 1 million people, some say. 600,000 people left, the men left with their families. So I don't think he would have had too hard of a time finding them there. So Jethro rejoiced over the goodness that our Creator, or the Creator of Israel, has done in rescuing them from the Egyptians. And he says, blessed be your Creator, who has rescued you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh, who has rescued the people from the grip of the Egyptians. You see, at no point prior to this had anyone escaped from Pharaoh or the Egyptians. And now you have all the people of Israel that escaped. And here's what Jethro says. And remember, this was a priest of other pagan gods. Here's what he says. I see now that the Creator is stronger than all the other gods, for he has routed the haughty foes of his folk. And there's many other different translations of that, but basically he has freed the children from the Egyptians and Pharaoh, who have never been able, no one has ever been able to escape them before. So this must be the hand of the Almighty Creator. So now Jethro is seeing something amazing happen and believing. It says, so Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, brought a burnt offering and some sacrifices for our Creator. And Aaron and all the people with him of Israel came to join in a sacrificial meal made by the father-in-law of Moses before a wonderful Creator. So basically, Jethro heard what happened. He brought his animals to make these sacrifices. He wasn't sure it was going to be true, but lo and behold, it was true, and he made this sacrifice to a wonderful Creator. The next day, Moses was holding a popular court with people surrounding him from morning to night. And the father of Moses noticed all the labor for all the people, and he said to him, what is this you are doing? Why sit alone and judge with the people all around you from morning until night? And Moses answered his father-in-law, because the people come to me to get our Creator's decision on their cases. So basically, it talks here about Moses being the judge, or being the prophet of a wonderful Creator, giving him the answer how to respond. Moses continues to say here in Exodus 18:16, whenever they have any disputes, they come to me. I decide between one man and the other. I let them hear the rules and the directions of a wonderful Creator. And then in 17, the father-in-law of Moses said to him, you are not doing right. So here is a pagan priest telling Moses, the so-called prophet, who heard about all these other cases and has all these other answers. He tells Moses, you are not doing right. You will wear yourself out, and your people. This work is too heavy for you or for just one person, and you cannot manage it alone. So here is the father-in-law coming, a pagan priest, telling Moses, a prophet, a wonderful Creator, what he is doing wrong. And then he goes on to give him some direction about it. Now before that, we have to understand, a non-believer telling the believer what he's doing wrong. Now, should Moses have listened to him further, or should he have cut him off there? Well, we have to understand that our Creator is going to speak to us many different ways, many different ways he's going to try to get our attention one way or the other. Now, I'm not saying it's right or wrong if Moses listened to the advice. Maybe Moses was the man for this job and only the man qualified to do this. Or maybe perhaps Jethro, in his experience of being a priest of another pagan god, had some good advice for Moses in the way he should handle situations. And our Creator could have certainly stopped it or caused Moses not to continue to listen. But our Creator let it happen, and his father-in-law spoke. In 18:19 he said, now listen to me. Let me advise you that our Creator may be with you. No, our Creator was with him, but he wasn't saying he may be with him. He's saying, I know our Creator is with you, but you need to find some capable men to help you with this task, or you're going to wear yourself out. That basically sums it up. Makes sense, good advice. So Moses now had a decision. Does he want to find other men to help him with the task at hand? Can he find other men? Will he be able to, or should he just not take the advice of this pagan priest? Basically, Moses says, well, let me see if there are some men capable. And he goes, the father-in-law says, well, here's how you find out who's capable. Find some capable men among the people, some righteous men, basically, who are spiritually honest men, who they would scorn unjust prophets, and appoint them to supervise the group of thousands and hundreds, of 50s and of 10s, and let them act as judges in the ordinary cases, and you handle the serious cases. You know, I could forward and think about the time of Solomon, where Solomon sat in the court all day listening to the people's cases, or at least the serious cases, and judging. Well, that's what Moses was doing. This is something, a tradition, or something the prophets did. Now, this is some good advice. There are many men with you, and not all of them are righteous, but call out the righteous ones and let them help you with the minor issues so you can do the major things, and you don't have to strain yourself or wear yourself out. So Moses listened to what his father-in-law said and did exactly as he told him to do. He chose capable men of all of Israel and put them to the head of the people of the groups, the hundreds, the tens, the thousands, the 50s. And they sent on the difficult cases to him. It says after all that happened, then Moses' father-in-law, he left. He went on back to his own country. But it didn't say he took his grandchildren and his daughter back. So he would have left them with Moses, according to what this says. It says he didn't leave with them. It didn't say that. Now, chapter 19, we're going to see two verses in chapter 19 that are there, but they really should be in chapter 20 if you want to look at the true order of the way these things happened. And we're going to continue reading. After he left Rephidim, the Israelites reached the desert in Sinai, where they pitched camp in the desert. Now, Sinai was an area where several different amazing things happened in the lives of the people of Israel, and we're going to see one of them coming up here real soon. It says, where they pitched their camp in the desert. It was in the 3rd month after leaving the land of Egypt. On this day they entered the desert Sinai. There Israel camped in front of the mountain, and Moses went up to our wonderful Creator. And our Creator called to him from the mountain, saying, tell this to the house of Jacob. Tell the Israelites, you have seen for yourselves what I did to the Egyptians, and how I bore your safety on eagle's wings and brought you here to myself. So he's telling Moses, look, tell them they have already saw, or remind them everything they have saw and everything they experienced. It says, now then, if you will listen to what I say and keep my commands, you shall be my own prized possession among all the nations. So he's saying, if you will listen, if you will be obedient, you will be a prized possession. For all the world is mine, and you shall be a destiny of priest for me, a sacred nation. Now, a job of a priest is to hear from the people and be the mediator to our Creator and speak to our Creator. And that's what he would have. That's what the children of Israel would have been if they would have listened and obeyed, but they didn't listen to obey. So now he was trying to take the burden off Moses and saying, not only am I going to have one priest for me, I'm going to have a whole nation. All the Israelites will be priests for me if they will be obedient. And so if the children would have been obedient, Moses certainly would have help, and he wouldn't need to judge the cases, because everyone would have been to go directly to our wonderful Creator without having Moses as a mediator. However, the children didn't listen, and they lost that blessing. And thanks today, through the grace of our wonderful Creator, we have a mediator, and that is Yeshua Messiah. But we go on and we see what happened here when he told the children, if you listen, you will be a nation of priests for me. So then our wonderful Creator tells Moses, this is what you must tell them. Now, that's verse 6, verse 19:6. Now, verse 19:7 and 8 would be more put in order if we put that in chapter 20, and we'll get up to that later. We're not changing scripture here, folks. What we're doing is we're putting in a correct order of the way things most likely happened. So after we get to 19:6 and our Creator tells Moses on the mountain, they will be a nation of priests for me if they listen to my word, he goes on to say in 19:7 and 8, you move that to chapter 20, and we'll talk about where that belongs in chapter 20. But we go on to from Exodus 19:6 to Exodus 19:9. And in Exodus 19:9 it says, this is what you must tell them. Our Creator said to Moses, I am coming in a thick cloud so that the people may hear me speaking to you and always believe you also. So they're going to hear me speaking to you. The Creator added to Moses, go to the people and Concentrate them today and tomorrow, and let them wash their clothes and be ready for the third day. So prepare them for my coming, he's saying. For on the third day, I, the Creator of all, will descend upon the mountain of Sinai in the sight of all the people. You must mark off the mountain all around and tell the people to be careful never to ascend near it, nor even touch the edge of it. Anyone who touches the mountain shall be put to death, not touched by any hand, but either by stone or shot through. So nobody is to touch this mountain. Our Creator is going to come down and talk to the people and make this nation a nation of priests for him. And it says, neither nor man, sure, nor beast, nor intruder shall live if they come near the mountain. Once the ram's horn is sounded, and they may come up to the mountain, but till then none of them will. So we go into verse 14. So Moses went down the mountain to tell the people and concentrated them, washing their clothes, and he told them to be ready for the third day and to touch no women. Well, to stay clean, to touch no women. And then we talk about nidah, which we'll talk about another time, about keeping yourself ceremonial clean. On the third day in the morning, there was a thunder and a lightning and a dense cloud over the mountain, and on a loud trumpet blast, till all the people of the camp trembled. Then Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet our wonderful Creator. They took their stand at the foot of the mountain as the triumph blast grew louder and louder. And Moses spoke, and our Creator answered. Then our Creator descended on the mountain of Sinai to the top of the mountain, and all of the mountain of Sinai was wrapped in smoke. And the Creator of all descended in a fire upon it, and smoke rose like steam, until the people all trembled terribly. And our Creator called Moses to the top of the mountain. And when Moses went up, the Creator told him to go down and warn the people against intruding to gaze at the Creator. At least a number of them should be struck down. Even the priests, if they come and they try to look, they also will be affected. So there was some priest already there with Moses, and he said they will be affected. Moses said to the Creator, but the people cannot come up to the mountain of Sinai, for you yourself told them if they could to mark it off, and if they come up, you will put them to death. And our Creator said, go down yourself then, and come up alone with Aaron, but let neither the people nor the priest intrude and come up to the mountain, at least a break upon them. So Moses went down to them and spoke all these words. So basically our Creator says on the third day, I am going to come over the mountain and I am going to speak to you. The people are going to hear this, and they are not to come up to the mountain. They need to listen to everything I have to say, but first they need to know that I am in direct contact with you, to Moses. And Moses says, well, I'll do as you say. And Moses goes and tells the people everything, and the people are getting ready and cleaning themselves. And on the third day, here comes the big blast, the lightning and the thunder, and our Creator descends and speaks to Moses, and the people hear this, and they trembled with fear. It said, our Creator said, and this is the 20th chapter of Exodus, you talk about foundations, you talk about teaching, you talk about how we are supposed to live as believers, how we're supposed to walk and act as believers, how our fruit is supposed to show. Well, you look here, right here, it says, our Creator spoke all these things and all these words. I am the Creator of all that brought you from the land of Egypt, from the slavery that happened back there in Egypt. And then he gives them the commandments, the instructions, and guidelines. Number 1, you shall have no gods before me. No pagan gods, nobody before me, because he is a jealous Elohim. He is a jealous Creator. Have no gods before me. Number 2, you shall not carve any idols for yourself. So you're not going to carve any idols for yourself, make any idols for yourself, and the images of these things. Because remember, back then it was a custom of people to carve stone and other precious metals into certain shapes and animals and different types of idols. And he's saying you shall not have that. Number 3, you shall not use the name of your Creator, your God, in vain. You shall not use his name lightly. You should not use it loosely. Now, his name wasn't God, folks. His name was Yahweh or Yahweh, and you can use it, but you can't use it lightly. You can use it holy. Use it in holy instances. When you're referring to him, he has a name, and use it, but don't curse it. Don't use it cursing. So his name was not God. That's just the title, folks. So we have to understand that. You shall not use the name of your eternal, wonderful Creator lightly. So he wasn't saying don't use the name. He was saying don't profound the name and use it loosely. Then number 4, remember to hold the Sabbath sacredly. 6 days you may labor and do all your business, and the 7th day is a Sabbath day. It is a rest amongst you. Now, that is Saturday on today's calendar. We are to use that as our Sabbath. Remember what I said, folks. You have the next 6 commandments. The children of Israel had no problem keeping commandments number 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, because that's the morality of our conscience, that we shouldn't do the things. We should respect our parents and do not steal, do not curse. But these first commandments right here, these are the commandments that the church today teaches are done away with. But the Bible teaches they are still more important than ever before. You shall have no gods but me. And so many people today, even believers, are making other gods and idols out of just about everything. You shall not carve any images, and images and idols are everywhere. You shall not use the name or profound the name. And they profound the name by giving our wonderful Creator an earthly title, never using his name. And when they do use his title, they curse his title, or they mix it and use it very loosely. Not the way it should be. And number 4, remember the Sabbath. And I'd say the majority of the so-called believers out there are not following the way of Messiah by keeping the Sabbath day holy, or not even keeping the Sabbath. They don't even know what it is because they're biblically illiterate. So the first 4, that's what they're not keeping. And then we go on and we look more. It says, number 5, honor your father and your mother. Number 6, you shall not murder. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. Number 8, you shall not steal. Number 9, you shall not give false evidence against your fellow countryman. And number 10, you shall not convert your fellow countryman's household. Basically, those were the commandments. And then we go and we look at, remember we took those 2 chapters of 19, 7 and 9, and we put it here, we moved it to 20. Well, after we get to chapter of 20:17 of Exodus, we take 19, 7, and 8, and we place them where they rightfully belong to make it more understandable, the correct order. We're taking it and putting it between chapter 20:17 and 20:18. So we're taking 19, 7, and 8 and replacing it after chapter 20:17 and before chapter 20:18. And it'll read like this. Chapter 20:17, the last commandment. You shall not covet your fellow countryman's household. You shall not covet your fellow countryman's wife, nor his slaves, male or female, nor his ox, nor his donkeys, nor anything that belongs to the fellow countryman. Now we go on, chapter 19, verse 7. Then Moses went and summoned the leaders of the people, putting before them all these orders given to him by the wonderful Creator, and the people all answered together, whatever the Creator has ordered, we will do. So that's what, after we get the last commandment, that's what it was said, and then we continue in chapter 20, verse 18. But when the people saw the thunder and lightning and the triumph blast and the mountain in smoke, the people were all afraid and trembled, and they stood back and said to Moses, speak to us, and we will listen to you, but not to your wonderful Creator. Speak to us, lest we not die. We cannot see him. So basically, after they said we will do all you could do, they were stricken with fear. They didn't want to be the priest. They didn't want to be the mediation between the people of the world and the wonderful Creator. They told Moses, you do it and we'll listen to you. They told Moses, you be the messenger, we'll listen to you. We go down to chapter 20, 23. It says, you have seen for yourself that I have been talking to you out of the heaven. You must not carve yourselves any gods of silver or gold to rank with me. And you must not put up any altars. And it goes on, going over all of these different things. The people heard directly what they should not be doing. And they know directly now because Moses is the mediator that they voted for, that they pleaded for. And then finally in 2026, it ends off by saying, when you build your altars and my altar, and you go up to the altar, you are not to use steps to go up to that altar. You are not to use steps to go to my altar, so you will not be indecently uncovered. So you will not expose your private parts. So you will show your cleansedness, your heart, and your modesty towards me, your respect towards me. So this were the commands, and this is what the people were told. Now remember, folks, behind every scripture is a principle. And he's given the foundation and the principles to what these things mean. And now we're going to continue in the future Torah readings. We're going to see how the people didn't listen, and they actually went against these words. And whenever they listened, they were blessed. And when they didn't listen, they were cursed. And we're going to see that. And that's why they were in the desert for 40 years. Because even though they said Moses was the mediator, the messenger, the priest, what had happened was the people didn't want that job. So he just took one of the tribes of Levi, and he said, okay, they will be my priest for me. And the rest of you, you need to follow the words and hear what the priests are saying. But the people didn't do that. And that's why it took them 40 years to wipe all of them out. And all the people that left Israel, for the people to come into the new land, the promised land, hopefully with a new heart. But we saw that it wasn't too far behind, that Egypt was still even in those people, and the disobedient was in those people too. So that is the Torah portion for this week's reading. The next week's reading is the 18th reading, which will be verses or chapter 21:1 of Exodus, Exodus 21:1 to 24:18. So next week's reading will be Exodus 21:1 to 24:18. All right, folks, listen. If you have any comments or questions about this week's Torah portion or any of the other ones, please post them below the videos and I will answer them. Please go to the website TorahLifeMinistries.org and check out all the videos we have on there to understand Torah, the foundation of what Yeshua Messiah wants. And coming up next Shabbat, study this Torah portion so when it comes up, you'll understand, you'll know. Now, when I was in school and I went to my history class, I learned about history. So I learned about history, and if the teacher was telling the truth, I learned about true history. Well, the Bible is the world's greatest history book, his story, and has the history of everything that's true. And, there are a lot of people today teaching false history, or history that they want you to believe. You must understand the truth. And the only way to get there is not to be biblically illiterate and not understand your scriptures. It's to study the scriptures, read the history stories, and you'll know the truth. I pray you've learned some truth here, that we're all responsible for keeping the guidelines and instructions. If you feel you can't, well, everyone we're able to, we should. And still, if you feel that it's not possible, at least do your best to keep 10 of them, right? All right, everybody, this is Paul Neeson with the Torah Life Ministries. Thanks for checking us out. Have a great Shabbat and Shalom, Shalom.